All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I don't want to keep you guys past 10:30, so we'll start off on the transportation side. I will cover uh, the issue with DBPR and the board and FEMIC and continuing ed here after we get done with transportation. So, um, House Bill 5501, that is the doc stamp tax distribution bill. There is no companion in the Senate at this point. Totally going to be a part of the budget negotiations, though. This is the one that's raised the Transportation Trust Fund for currently about $466.8 million, which, as we talked about last week, turns in the 5-year work program, turns into $2.5–3 billion in impacts. And then the way it impacts other things would be about $11 billion at the end. So, we've got a group that's working on this. It's our transportation committee leadership and our transportation director. I know they had some chats with some House members and some Senate members this week. I'm going to focus in next week on particularly on the Senate. The budget negotiations. The budgets have been passed in both houses, but they're very different. They're about $4.4 billion apart. They're both much lower than the governor's budget recommendation, so they've got a lot of work to do. But they'll probably be here next week, at least through Wednesday, maybe short time on Thursday, but then we'll break for the Easter recess. And so I don't think there's any plans for them to begin budget negotiations this week or this next week. It would be the week after Easter. Um, so we got a group that's going to be working early in the week next week. JW, you want to kind of jump in and kind of who you've talked to and kind of the feedback you're all getting?
Sure. Our initial outreach included both the House and the Senate. Um, the House members we talked to said, yeah, we understand, but we're not going to go against the Speaker. The bill did pass unanimously uh, through the floor, um, and is in, in messages to the House. I'm sorry, in messages to the Senate. On the Senate side, a little quieter response, although the our outreach directly to the Senate President. Um, uh, I don't know that we had any specific outreach, but FTBA did, and they were basically told, "Yeah, we're aware, and we'll let you know." They weren't going to say anything one way or the other at this point in the process. Next week, we've got a list of people that we're going to circle back to, most of whom we've already spoken to or attempted to, but we're just going to continue to make sure that they're aware of it and try to formalize some acknowledgement in coordination with both uh, with the department, with FDOT. They really can't do a whole lot, but FTBA, I spoke with Dan Hurtado this morning, and they're on the same path that we are with the educational process on the Senate side. Just they've got the same message from the department that we did, so we're both carrying the same thing forward.
All right. Thanks, JW. Um, Obviously, we'll keep a close eye on that. The governor's been a great ally of transportation. The problem is in their talks, there should be some backdoor negotiations going on, but it doesn't appear that there is. We don't believe there's anything that especially between the governor's office and the House, just don't seem to be speaking. And I heard Speaker Perez on NPR. He was doing a press avail, and I think the governor's office is blaming it on the House, and the House is blaming it on the governor's office. But he was just expressing that he was very surprised that the governor's office hadn't entered into any discussions at this point. So, it starts to come down. We're sort of at the place in session now. Um, after this week, we'll have 3 weeks left. Next week's going to be a short week. And then those final 2 weeks. So, and this isn't uncommon in Tallahassee at this time of the year, but, there's a lot of chatter going on about, will they get this done in time? Or will they have to extend the session or possibly come back in a special session? But we'll see. We'll go on the assumption they're going to get it done, and there's a lot going to happen in the last 3 weeks. So, all right, Laura, we can move on to the FDOT package. 1397 is now in the Commerce Committee, which is its final committee. And we'll have to watch what happens here, because your policy committees are no longer meeting. So if we've got bills that haven't gotten out of their policy committees, they're not totally dead, but they're close. This one is in its final committee stop. I think Commerce will continue to meet because they've got a lot to do with money and the budget and everything. So one more stop for that bill. 1662 is on its final stop of the Appropriations Committee, which will certainly keep meeting. And so one more stop for each. And I would say that things look pretty good for the FDOT package at this point. Then we come to FTBA's bill. I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
Jennifer needs to borrow it.
So Senate Bill 462 has passed its committees as of yesterday and is now on the second reading calendar. For those that don't know, what they do is when it goes to the floor, it's placed on second reading. In theory, that's the stop where amendments can be made and that kind of thing. It will roll to third reading, which is where debate happens, and then the final vote would be taken. They don't always do it that way, but that's kind of the setup and the general procedure for how they work. So that is on second reading. It'll probably come up next week. 567 is the House version. It's got one more committee stop, also the Commerce Committee. And after that, it would go to the floor too. So it looks like the Senate bill will get there first. So the Senate passes it. They'll send it over in messages to the House. The House will probably lay their bill on the table, which just means they're going to just take up the Senate bill because they only need one of them to pass, but both chambers need to pass it. So I would look for, that process. With next week being a short week, I think the Senate will get it over to the House, and then probably the week after Easter, they would the House take up the Senate bill, and I assume we'll pass it out.
Alan, this is John. We've got someone raise their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, John. Appreciate that. Steve Farrell here. Just a question regarding there was some provision somewhere in one of those bills about raising the speed limits. I don't see that in any of the language, but what's the latest on that?
It's still in there.
So who is advocating for that? And do any of us who are transportation engineers think that's a good idea?
The language does say with after appropriate studies and with approval. Don't know who specifically is advocating for it, but
Fiona McFarland, Representative Fiona McFarland it's in her bill, I think, and she's big on it. I don't know who else.
I don't know who brought it to her, John, but the sponsor's a pretty strong advocate for it. Just a real quick note, what's also still in there is the prioritization of I-4 between US 27 and US 301.
Steve, to your point, just from an opinion from a transportation engineer, is provided it's not dictating what we're doing and it's just providing the ability to post. I think studies will advocate for sort of what we're doing right now, unless locals dictate otherwise, but I think we should be all right.
My screen just went funky here. Hold on. All right. So any other questions on transportation? All right, Laura, if you want to switch over, thank you. Okay, we've had this one at the top for a while. The Water Management District bill does a lot of things. Jeff goes in depth in this one. We were interested in the part in there about the extra 3 years of warranty, and they mentioned CCNA, but in the end, we've determined that it's not really about the price component of CCNA. It's just they're looking for additional insurance or whatever the financial vehicle will be. So that has passed the full Senate now. It's in messages to the House. Again, as with just about everything else, that's a priority of the Senate president. So even though it's not necessarily a budget type of item, it's going to weigh into all that. The House has moved it now. It's in its final stop over there. I would assume they'll move it on through and have it postured, to be able to use that as a bargaining chip during the negotiations. That bill is the House bill is done by Representative Bill Connerly, who is a engineer with Kimley Horn, if nobody knew that. So there's no questions on that. Let me just get through a couple of these. The rural and urban business enterprises, again, some of the speaker or the Senate president's priorities. This one, this was the one that appeared at the beginning that it would exempt Space Florida from CCNA, but that would only be where a project's being funded in total by private money. If there's any state or local government money in a project, CCNA would still apply. The interesting thing on that, it's moved, it'll be on the agenda on the 15th on Tuesday, and the final, I believe I might have not updated it. I believe it's actually in rules that it's got one more committee in the Senate, but has not moved in the House at all. So. And then the big ones. I'm going to skip 1452 and just go to 1461. That's the bill that was amended yesterday or the day before. It now would eliminate all the professional and occupational boards under DBPR and put everything under DBPR. They would administer all of it. That includes the Florida Board of Professional Engineers. It includes FEMIC. And then to just make it worse, it takes away all requirements for continuing education. So we're working on that. John, you've got a meeting on Monday with Yarkowski.
Yes, I do. Yep.
Okay.
And one of our board members will be attending with me. So
right. I talked to Dylan Albergo yesterday. He's the chair of the Board of Professional Engineers. He's also an FES member, has been a long time. I think his firm's in ACEC too. And he's going to come up to be in that meeting because he can talk this stuff back and forth. And, John, I know we're probably going to meet up with Dylan on Monday morning, but, kind of what he can explain is, how efficient the Board of Professional Engineers is. On the other side of this, we're trying to work while they're talking about getting rid of them. We're trying to also work to get them more money. But they started out in 97 or 98. Their budget was $2.07 billion. And today in the current budget bill, it is still $2.07 million. So they haven't asked for or received any more money in 27 years. And then he can go into, part of what drives all of this is trying to get people from other states to get licensed here and make it easier for them to do so. Our board has it where if you meet the criteria and you apply, you'll have a license within 2 weeks. And then also you can throw in there, the work that the governor's office has done, and we were involved with there for a little bit of like a reciprocity agreement with Great Britain. So a lot of stuff going on in this. I know, it's going to be a heavy lift. Don't get me wrong. So don't hold us to this, but our goal here is to get ourselves out of that bill. If that bill's going to go and anything's going to be done, is to get ourselves out of it, and then work on the money part of it. If we can accomplish that first one, we'll call it a win and come back on the money, next session, which, this is the short year. So, committee meetings will begin in about 5 months. It won't be that long till we can get to the next one, but we're going to try to get it done this time. And I'm not sure where the Senate is on this. They haven't moved their DBPR bill at all. Again, this could all come into the negotiations going forward, but just be aware. And we're not asking for anything yet. We'll talk with Yarkowski and see. And if we think they're going to try to go and push this thing through, then we'll get back with the membership and start our little emailing campaign. Because that's definitely serious. Is there anybody that has any questions on that?
I don't have any. This is Angelina. Good morning, everyone. I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. I attended the FBPE board meeting that they had on Wednesday. I believe Denise Ramsey might be the new chair now. That was my impression during the meeting, is that they've shuffled the deck again.
Okay.
But there's great concern in the board about, unlicensed activity, the things that happen typically after major storms where people come from all over the place. We already have a problem in some of the northern counties where building officials overstep their bounds, and building officials are letting contractors do work that really engineers should be doing. So there was a lot of correspondence from the public about some of those overreaches by certain professions. So we don't want to get into a turf war thing. We don't want to start defending, our work versus others. And the board was very clear about that we cannot tell other professions how to discipline their licensees, but that we need to continue to just enforce that we are now requiring everybody to submit CEUs. That was a big discussion item about how long it took to process everybody's renewal this year, because since our members failed the audit 3 years in a row, we now have to all submit certificates to prove that we're staying current, and that the emphasis in all of this discussion about the board should be the protection of the public and reminding them what happened at Surfside.
Alan, this is Andy. I would add to that, from my perspective, those of us that are licensed in more than one state, then maybe there is, but I'm not aware of a state that doesn't have continuing education requirements. And so as professionals, for us to not have that in Florida, it makes no sense, because it's required everywhere else for good reason.
Right. We should be comparing ourselves to the doctors and not to the cosmetologists.
I agree with that. That's where a lot of this comes from, are these, other licenses that the state has. My favorite is the auctioneers. What damage can an auctioneer do?
Yeah, I saw that.
We'll see how it works out, but we'll know more on Monday after we meet with the bill sponsor, and we'll poke around in the Senate. John, I think you might have already.
Yeah, I met with the Senate President's office. Yeah, they did not seem interested at all in this bill. So, but it's a live grenade, as I always say, and it just depends on whether the House puts it up as a something that they want to trade on. So, but this far procedurally, this has no companion over in the Senate.
Cool. Yeah, and I agree with the live grenade comment, because this is one of those, I tell people all the time, the first time I saw the legislature try to totally deregulate DBPR was 2009. And it seems to me like it comes up, if not every year, every 2 or 3 years. And, but anybody that's been in this game long enough, somebody brings something back often enough, a lot of times they wind up passing. So, we'll treat it like it's got a chance, and see if we can't knock it down. If we can get ourselves out of it, that'd be great.
That's the goal.
But it sounds like it may have some issues anyway. But I think in your discussions with the Senate, they did say something about working on something dereg wise over the summer for next session. Or was I misunderstanding you?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said I thought you told me the other day after your meeting that they had mentioned something about working on a dereg package for next session and working on it over the summer. That the Senate's office is what I'm talking about. Or was I misunderstanding?
Yeah, I think misunderstood. That they didn't mention that at all. So
okay. Well, good.
So
that's good news. Okay, Department of Management Services. These bills haven't moved. That was the get rid of DBEs and MBEs and all of that kind of stuff. So that one looks like it's not gonna go at all. And then the construction liens and bonds, the House bill has not moved, but the Senate bill is on the special order calendar next week, meaning it's on the floor of the Senate. There is some language in 893 that would restrict lien rights for engineers and subcontractors and everybody else. But that language is not in the Senate bill. So if this bill's going to pass, and I don't know that we have a real position on that one way or the other, but we would want the Senate bill to be the one. Looks like it'll pass out next week and go over to the House. Again, the House hasn't touched it, so I'm not sure they're interested in it at all, and I don't think that's a priority for anybody other than maybe the sponsors. And then this alternative plans review, I kind of watched that because I know it's not a lot of our members, but we've got some members that are involved in that. And it looks like it's lagging a little bit. It's in its last committee over in the House. It's got 2 committees left in the Senate. So not that I wouldn't call this one dead, but I'd be worried about it if it was my bill. So we got about 5 minutes left. Do we have any questions? Anything else you're all hearing about that you're interested in? Michael Del Charco, you had mentioned a bill a week or so ago, and I went and looked it up and tried to call you, but I hadn't talked to you about it. So do you have that bill number again?
No, I don't have it handy, but I think I saw in Jeff's report that it was not moving forward. So yeah, sorry, I didn't call that up. I figured it was dead.
And I'm sorry, Doug, you just posted a question. Doug Holdner. Let me jump over here real quick.
Sorry.
Okay, so Doug's reading. Oh, there you go. Understand. You're saying that you've heard that it's. I understood it was an Overdorf priority, but the fact that it hasn't moved, that's in real trouble unless they want to pull something procedurally to get it going or get it on the House, get it on the floor once the Senate bill comes over. it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but normally a priority bill like that, they would move it. But I do understand the rumor mill.
Yeah, my knowledge comes from the utility contractor side and their work with Kerry Hebrink at Carlton Fields. It feels like it's got enough of a chance for something like that just to cause worry to get it amended into the Senate
It has no
bill
chance.
version, even though True now doesn't want it. And, you know, I mean, he's a sod farmer. It would affect him personally, professionally. But anyway,
John, was that
Procedurally,
you
they're-
that chimed
one
in?
more week.
Yeah.
And,
No, I just procedurally, it's dead. There's no more subcommittees. They typically don't pull stuff out. If it were a speaker priority, that bill would have been moving long before now.
all right.
But Doug, just to follow up on that, I know Carrie Hebrink really well. I've known her for 25 years, so I'll touch base with her just to see where she's at today.
Thank you.
Sure.
Victor, did you still have a question or comment?
No, I was communicating with Scott and just, I didn't get a chance to connect with JW, but Tuesday, Jared was in town and we grabbed coffee with him and we were conveying, I had gotten some points from JW, just kind of reiterating how ACEC's, you know, trying to be very forward facing and supporting legislative initiatives. Cause, you know, Jared did bring up again, like, hey, you know, we just need, when we asked, hey, what do you need from us? And this was us as a firm meeting with him, and his ask again was engagement on the legislative process. And you know, I had the notes handy from what the transportation committee's been doing, and he was very appreciative of that. And he obviously knows everything that JW and that committee are doing. So just to kind of bring light to it.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else?
All right.
All right. We're
Have a
finishing
great
right on
weekend then.
time. Yeah, I appreciate it, everybody.
See you guys.
Thank you.